All right, you grasshoppers. We finally got rid of Bob Pizzini and put somebody on here a little bit more intelligent. So our actually Bob's good friend, Allison Krug, we call her Allie. How are you, Allie? How are things today?
I'm great. Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here.
My pleasure. My pleasure to have you on. So Allie lives down in Virginia Beach, and Bob knows her through hockey, I believe, right? Is that how you two met?
Yes, I actually started emailing Bob from Japan because we knew we're a Navy family and we knew we would, this is the Ronald Reagan, CVN 76. So we knew that we would be moving to Virginia Beach in about March. I guess we found out we were moving, and my kids play ice hockey. So the number one thing you do when you're moving to a new place, obviously, is do what? You look for a rink, not a house. You look for the rink and then you draw a circle around the rink and you figure out how far you're willing to drive, to home and to work from the rink. So
that's cool. So look back real quick. Your husband's in the Navy?
He is.
Thank you very much for all the service. That's fun. Very, very proud of that. That's great. It's fantastic.
You're
how long have you been in?
So thank you. That's very nice of you.
How long has he been in?
I think actually 29 years.
Is that right?
Wow. Yeah. So we've been married 18 years. I think 19 years this year.
Wow, that's fantastic.
It's a wonderful life. It's busy, moving often, but I'm so thankful for meeting new people like Bob and obviously through him, you. And the hockey community is a really wonderful way to learn about new cultures, right? Because you have that common language of hockey and that common shared experience. And we were actually able to get the kids involved. We lived in Japan for 4 years. So the kids were involved in ice hockey in Japan for 4 years.
That's great.
That was incredible.
Good. Was the hockey pretty good over there?
It was good. When we first got orders, we moved from Washington State to Japan, and I was thinking, I wonder about hockey in Japan. How is that going to work? And started Googling. I had two goals: find horses and find hockey. And I found hockey pretty quickly. So the program's big as far as intensity and focus and commitment, but the number of players are very, very small. So the quality of instruction is incredible. The coaches are all fathers, but it's a club organization. And so they don't have school-based teams. What they do is they get together for tournaments. And so it goes all year. So you might actually travel 5 hours, from Tokyo area up into Nagano or up into Gunma and, visit a rink in a caldera up on a mountain somewhere and play all weekend. And then you might not have games for a month, something like that.
It's a great way to see the country, especially a new country like
incredible. Yeah, I had this really, really old 1999, minivan, which I swore I would never drive. So a very, very old car that we got for basically 100 yen when we moved there. And that car survived, all these trips. I think I put 80,000 kilometers on that car.
Oh, is that right?
So, yeah.
Good. And how old are your sons?
They are 12 and 15.
Good. We'll have to get them on the show someday.
They would love that. I told them all about you.
Oh,
one
excellent.
Is a talker, and the other one doesn't talk so much. I don't know if you're good with those who don't talk a lot, but
people say I've got a big mouth, so it really doesn't matter. So we were joking around before the show. I looked on your LinkedIn page here, and I mean this in a very good way. There's a list here. So, epidemiologist and biomedical communications consultant, hockey mom, runner, equestrian, hiker, backyard lumberjack. We're going to talk about that one. Passion for kids and education, clients worldwide, office of Big. That's great. That's a great list there.
Thank you. It's just busy.
Now I got to get on the backyard lumberjack. Where does that go?
Well, it starts with fire, right? I love fire. And so to have fire, you need wood. And I also don't like to spend a lot of money. And so it started out in Washington State. I figured, well, if you don't buy wood that's already split and you're willing to get the rounds delivered to you, maybe you can save a buck. So I started looking for people who wanted to just get rid of the rounds. And so that turned into, well, I need to teach myself how to split wood without breaking my leg with a massive maul, And so you know what a grenade is?
Yeah.
You take a grenade and you stick it into so I flip the axe over. It's basically a maul. So there's like a sharp end and then there's the blunt end. Right. So I trained myself with muscle memory using the blunt end on the grenade. And I just kept going after and going after and going after it until I knew that when I swung hard, I wasn't going to chop my leg off. I would more than likely hit the wood.
And so one of the little tips I learned chopping wood is better to do it in the cold, right? Much easier to split the wood in the cold.
Yeah, I guess the ice inside the wood, the water inside the wood is frozen. It just blows up. But I'll go after one round for 45 minutes. I won't quit. So I actually save pieces of wood that have they're not actually split yet, but they have all of my axe marks for 45 minutes, and I have them in front of my house. They moved with me. My husband tries to keep things that are like really actually more trash, but they're important to me. So these pieces of wood have some memories of like, stick with it. Maybe it will split.
No, it will. So have you ever gone as far as like to learn how to start fire without like a lighter or anything like that?
I tried in Hawaii. I was determined to be able to do that because the Samoans have this really great way of getting the fire going with some little coconut strands and a little bit of dust and things like that, and using their machete. And they actually said that. So I went up to these chiefs after this demonstration. They're Samoan chiefs, but in Hawaii, and I was like, "You've got to tell me your secret because I'm determined to do this." So I went back and I tried. They said use the same kind of wood. It has to be 2 pieces of wood that are the same kind, and dry, and just keep rubbing and rubbing and rubbing. So I would sit on my porch and try, and no, I can't do that. I use pizza boxes.
Oh, your pizza box. So I was on the TV show Survivor, and making fire there was a big thing. Like being able to make fire. You get flint eventually, and you can. It's relatively easy to start the fire.
Did you use flint on Survivor?
Yes, we couldn't get our fire started for the first 3 days, and then after the 3rd day, they gave us the flint, and then we got started. But at home, I had practiced before rubbing the wood, and I was fine. But the problem was when you get to Fiji, we were in Fiji, and it was so hot and humid that you're working hard trying to rub this wood together, so the sweat's just pouring off you, and then drop it right where you're trying to start the fire. So I was so mad because I knew how to do it, but I couldn't get it done. And then finally, when we got the flint, we came back to camp, and you got to be careful on the show that you don't like overdo things, like give everybody a chance to show what they can do and everything. So this other player on the show was Aaron. We knew how to start with the flint, so we took like 2 minutes, couldn't start it. He gives it to me, and I knew how to do it, but I didn't get it done. So now this really nice young girl, Chelsea, we hand it to her. She starts the fire in about 2 seconds, right? So here's these 2 big guys that couldn't start the fire, and Chelsea starts the fire, makes us kind of ruins our reputation right off the bat. But that was blast.
How did you get on Survivor? Did you know you want to do it and apply and say, hey, can I try? Or how does that work?
I can see you on Survivor already. I can see you got it.
I think so.
So I guess it all started. I think my loose understanding of this is that Jerry Bruckheimer, the movie producer, owns some piece of Survivor, Amazing Race, and Big Brother. So he approached the NHL about getting some former players on Amazing Race, some older guys that were teammates and everything. And I joke around, I got in trouble saying it, but there's nobody that was in good enough shape at my age to do it. So we couldn't find anybody there. Then another gentleman I was working with knew somebody else that was a casting director for Survivor. So the Amazing Race thing kind of prompted the interest in it. So we contacted them again and had to go through a process. And it's one of those deals that when you start it off, you think, in all likelihood, you're not going to get on the show anyway. So let's just throw it out there. And then they got back to us and flew out to LA for casting, and then got a call a few months later that I was on the show. So it was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
I can see you doing it though. You got the lumberjack look and everything. You could do that.
It would be fun, but I'm really not very good at anything. I do a lot of things, but I'm not very good.
Yeah, but you don't have to be.
Quit.
Yeah, but it's it's quite a bit of it is the luck of the draw too. Everybody every time are you familiar with the show, how they work it, how the
a little bit, yes.
So it's like every vote off, every tribal council, everybody else is just trying to find a reason to vote somebody else off, and just to make sure it's not you. So it's just the luck of the draw sometimes. I mean, there's some players that are better than others in strategy and everything, but it's a little bit of luck of the draw. But it's still a blast. It was the oldest player they'd had out there in about 10 years. I turned 61 when I was out there, and I was the first Canadian they ever had on the show as well. So
that's good.
Yeah, good.
Your positive personality kept you from being voted off.
Pardon me?
Your positive personality probably helped you be glue for the team.
Well, the reason that I appreciate you saying that, the reason I got voted off was I was too loyal. I was actually kind of happy that that's how they viewed me. But we had this tribe swap, so the people I had built an alliance with were now over on the other tribe. So the new tribe members said, "We're getting rid of him because he's going to be loyal to the old guys." And so when they said that to me, as much as I didn't want to get voted off, I was like, "Well, if I've got to go, then it's pretty good. That's the reputation I have for me. We're happy with that." Yeah. So epidemiologists and biomedical communications consultants. So people in that field hire you to put together presentations?
Actually, well, so epidemiologist is something that people kind of know a little bit about now, thanks to the pandemic, but it's something that when I was starting out 20 years ago, it was really a conversation stopper. People didn't really know what it was at all. It's basically the study of disease in populations. But I got into that because I originally thought I really wanted to be a vet, maybe because I grew up on a farm and I loved horses. And then I, went to school, went to college and thought about maybe being a doctor, but biochemistry was really hard. And Then I thought, well, maybe physical therapy, and that required many, many hours of volunteer work to get into it. But I really like, and I know you and Bob talk about this a lot, thinking about people as a whole person, like treating yourself holistically, not just organ systems in isolation, but really the whole person, mind and body. So that's what I liked about physical therapy, but I wanted to be able to help populations, not just individuals. And epidemiology was a way to get into that. It's a part of public health practice in that you look at the determinants, risk factors for disease in population. And that allowed me to help without being in a hospital or being exposed to germs, which I found out that I didn't really like all that much. So, yeah. So what I have been doing for 20 years is basically working for large organizations like a health maintenance organization doing preventive healthcare. And so I looked at programs in preventive health and then tried to improve them and tried to get more people to take advantage of them and figure out who was and who wasn't and what could we do to reach more people. And then I also worked for Merck Vaccine Division and worked in public sector vaccine sales, so prisons and state health departments. That was fascinating. So I got to be on the front lines of healthcare there. And then I got married and to my husband in the military, and we had to move. So I decided to start my own business, basically as a one-woman consultant, using those skills in statistics and health research to try to help other people get through the publishing process. A lot of people have really, great ideas and interesting studies that they've done, but pushing it through the publication process is really a pain. Takes a lot of time, and really they would rather be researching, designing the studies, crunching the data. Sure. And they just need a hand doing the background research and writing up the study and doing the formatting and the references and all of that. So I am really lucky that I get to keep my hand in public health, even though we've been moving so much, and learn about what people are doing. And I have clients in Kazakhstan, Republic of Georgia, Estonia, Japan, California, New York. I'm sure I'm missing a few, Mongolia. Wow. So I'm aware of what people are doing in public health research in a really wide variety of places, simply by the fact that I get to read their studies and try to help them polish them up before they go to peer review. And ultimately what that means, when it goes through peer review, if I've done my job really well, then they will have fewer revisions, hopefully, and less substantial revisions.
Very cool. That sounds exciting. So I don't know if I want to put you on the spot or not with this COVID-19. Did you, very early see what it was going to become, or did you think that this is what it was going to be?
In fairness, I think any epidemiologist did. That wouldn't have been a unique insight, given that we were living in Japan, literally just 30 minutes from the cruise ship that pulled in. We were very, very, in Yokosuka base, very actively thinking about what does this mean and how do we stand up departments and, functional units to track the data and take care of our people and have positive relationships. I hate to use that word positive now. It seems like it's always appropriated to, a positive test, but have productive and meaningful and good relationships with the Japanese government and the Japanese people, because the Yokosuka base was situated right in Japan, right there, where this was really the front line. So in fairness, I should say that, yes, I have seen a lot of things coming, because any person with my kind of training is very actively always probably thinking about how to keep people safe, how to identify risk factors, how to look at even just a building or a flow of people and say, here's where your biggest risks are and here's where the risks aren't quite so bad. Maybe it's just something you don't turn off very easily if you're in this line of work. So sometimes I have the opinion that, this, in my view, it's logical. There's been some mistakes along the way. Maybe we could have closed schools earlier or done different things. And I say to myself, well, that's logical because we've never been through this before. But after talking to you, I almost feel like, well, no, we should have known, right? Because there's people like you out there that if they had have drawn you into it more. Yeah, I was thinking about, I'm at iFly at Bob's business, and I just got to fly. And so on my way up here, I was very nervous about thinking about trying skydiving for the first time. And so I was distracting myself with what you might ask me. So, I think that we need to bear in mind that there's a difference between the science as it's understood and as it's evolving and how we communicate that to people. And if you read the things on the CDC website and you delve deeply into the science, you'll find that things are articulated very, very clearly. and in a very reasoned way. Scientists are just that way. They understand that not everything is 100% known, and that's what p-values mean, is we can't fully say that there is no room for chance in this possible outcome. There's actually this really small chance that this could be random. So scientists are very comfortable in that world of dealing with the potential unknown. I think the real challenge has been, how do we communicate to an entire planet in a nuanced way what is important for some people to do and what is important for other people to do. The message, when you distill it down to a Twitter feed for people who have the attention span of a gnat, many of us, is very difficult, and it's really not fair to ask anybody to do that right from the beginning. So for me, I care about language a lot. I have a certificate from San Diego State University, and I care about rhetoric, and I really care about the language we use to speak to people. And I've really enjoyed the opportunity here in Virginia Beach to get to meet real people who are dealing with, trying to keep ice hockey alive, and appreciating what it takes to work with an organization to make the changes that we have to make it safe for kids, parents, and even those who have higher risk people at home. That's what's really brought it home for me. And it's been a real honor and a privilege to do that. It's not easy. So.
And how do you feel about this vaccine then that's been rushed through? I mean, obviously they have to rush it. I mean, they don't have a choice, but the safety of the vaccine.
I'm curious about that too. I love viruses. I love immunology. I actually really love the field of vaccine research. And I think that it might do the industry a bit of a disservice to say it's rushed without really understanding how these studies are done. Yes, it is moving forward at a very much accelerated pace, but everything that I read indicates that all of the steps that need to be followed, all of the study protocols that need to be done are being done. Some of the unique things that have occurred because of the pandemic is publishing the protocols that they're using for anyone to look at. And so I did. So again, all of the information is out there if one is a curious nerd like I am and really wants to go digging and see what's under the hood of all this. It's there. I think that I would get the vaccine. I don't know if I should tell you this because you're live, but I actually did contract COVID on Halloween. Oh. And so I have some personal experience with, going through having, tested positive and understanding what that feels like to kind of grit through, white knuckle through the early days of the infection, wondering, just how serious is this going to be for me? I'm 49, I'm healthy, but, you read all these stories about people who go off the rails at day 7 or 8. So to be honest with you, I was quite nervous. And I'm sharing this just on the off chance that any of your listeners out there are worried and fearful, because I think we can do a better job in this public space of providing hope and encouragement, and just a renewed trust in each other, trust in organizations, trust that the process is in place to review this vaccine, trust in our bodies. Meeting a new virus is not new. And I was actually kind of happy to meet the microbe in person. I actually was, doing some raking outside because I felt like, you would agree with this, some light exercise is good for the immune system, right?
Absolutely, yes.
So, yeah, and good for mental health. So I was outside raking leaves and stuff thinking, well, here I am. I'm getting to experience, this brand new pathogen firsthand. And I'll just have to trust that everything I've done to take care of myself to this date is going to work and I'll be okay.
And how were the symptoms?
They were mild. But, different, really, really different every day and different than anything I'd had before. You'd wake up with do you know where your piriformis is? Do you know where that is? It's in your butt.
Oh, no, I didn't know that. No.
Okay. So I woke up with tremendous butt pain one day. And I was like, well, that's really, really odd. Is that related to this?
People said I'm a pain in the butt. I don't know if that's.
I went right to Google and I was like, am I? And it turns out Tom Hanks had the same thing. So I was really happy to find I wasn't alone in that one.
Wow. Very interesting. Here's a question from one of our viewers here. If you have had the virus, would you need the vaccine?
That's a very good question. I would not be probably first in line to get it, simply because at some point the folks who are triaging who should get the vaccine first will say, well, obviously those who have already had the disease were expected to have, both antibodies and also memory through the T cells. So I would not go and jump blind to try to get the vaccine before someone else. But eventually, I think what you might be getting at is And I was talking to my husband about this in the kitchen today. When there's a lot of natural infection floating around, those who have had the vaccine can get a natural boost by just being around people who have had the infection. So that natural boosting won't be there. And so one day, would I want to get a vaccine? Potentially. It's kind of like you get the varicella vaccine to prevent shingles later. That gives you a boost. Varicella is chickenpox. So even if you had chickenpox, you should get the shingles vaccine.
I had shingles about a year and a half ago, and I recommend that if you can get the shot, get the vaccine, you get it. That was one of the nastiest things I went through. So, yeah. Okay. So I'm the old farm boy, right? I grew up on a farm in Canada, never washed our hands. Yeah. All right. We'll get into the farm life, but I never washed my hands, all that stuff. It was, I just feel like maybe I'm feeling this way wrongly, but I feel like my immune system is built up by that because I was always around germs all the time on the farm. And I eat healthy now, exercise all the time. I'm eating my ginger and all that kinds of stuff, eating healthy foods. So maybe I got this false sense of security that, listen, I'm not saying I won't get the virus, but if I feel like my immune system is built up enough that it had a tougher time getting me. Is that wrong thinking that way?
Well, you're pretty tough, Beast, so I don't know.
Yeah.
You have some natural defenses not all of us enjoy, but so getting the virus is different. So you could get the virus, yes. Right. So that's different than how will your body respond to the virus. Right. What will your infection be like? And certainly being healthy and eating well, and even if you just think logically, if you exercise, I think you were mentioning on one of your conversations with someone else about just walking or jogging and increasing lung capacity.
Right.
If you think about having a respiratory virus attack you, it's better to start out with better lung capacity than less, right?
Okay. Yep.
So I think any exercise, if you haven't had COVID yet and you're just wondering about how to protect yourself and get ready for any sort of respiratory virus, whether it's parainfluenza or influenza or
sure.
Anything that's floating around out there, then get out and start exercising and just improve your overall health.
Right. And they kind
of the hygiene hypothesis is what you're talking about, and that is we're clean. And that's kind of a philosophy that some people are proposing that, really we should not be preventing exposures to things because, it's just, you
right.
might think that perhaps the immune system will overreact or hyper respond when it
right.
finally does encounter. That's called the hygiene hypothesis. And I can't tell you that I'm any expert in that at all, but I do think there might be something to it.
Yeah, it makes sense because if you're constantly killing the germs artificially, your body's not getting used to killing themselves, right? I mean, it's almost to me.
Part of me agrees with that because it makes some sense and it kind of justifies not being hyper about germs. But on the other hand, like it's not like our immune system sometimes loses the capacity to respond just because it hasn't exercised. It's not exactly like a muscle. So I'm not an immunologist. I'm just an epidemiologist and I'm not an expert. So I don't want anyone to take my word for this. But I do think that it is likely that we will see some interesting things down the road after asking everybody to wear a mask for a year. I do kind of worry about what that will look like. Will people have the same circulating level of antibodies to just general cold viruses? Because we haven't caught colds for a year.
Right.
So when we finally do get the vaccine and people get vaccinated and we begin to emerge back into normal life, maybe next year, right? And we're not wearing masks as much, will we have more common colds? Maybe.
Right. So I saw a poll the other day where it said like 50% of the country won't take the vaccine. They don't trust the vaccine yet. They've even been told by their doctors not to take it because, I guess they look at it and say, well, they haven't done, and you kind of touched on it earlier, they haven't done long-term studies. They haven't been able to, or are we looking at the studies the wrong way? Are they able to determine from the studies they do now what any long-term effects may be?
Well, no, I mean, we don't have 2 years worth of data, but, on the other hand, typically in a clinical trial, once you go through all of the safety and the efficacy studies, and then it's licensed by the FDA, and then people, have the vaccine, you do post-marketing surveillance. And that's the really long-term study when you get millions of people with experience. And that's when you can pick up different things than would have been picked up in a clinical trial with previously healthy people who were enrolled. So you have like your trial population, which is different than the general public getting the vaccine. So those are things that we're just going to have to watch. But I do, back to the trust that we were talking about before, I do trust that to the best degree possible, we have I think, the right protocols in place to get a vaccine to market with high potential to work.
Okay.
And it looks like good safety so far. But again, I'm not an expert, but I
That's-
can't say I have no confidence. I have some confidence that it's going to be fine.
Right. So, but that's interesting because you know, obviously know a lot more than I do, and I'm in that category of people. I guess it's just the trust factor. It's like there's been so much, so many different opinions. You know, do they wear a mask? Do we not wear a mask? It seems, especially early, things have kind of smoothed off now where there are the protocols in place. But it's just like, okay, does anybody really know what's going on? But you feel confident that yes, there is people out there that they really do know. They've studied this.
Yeah, they do. I mean, it's unfortunate that our discourse is always like, you do a good job of allowing me to talk for a long period of time, right? But typically in an interview, they're just such brief sound bites that people are allowed to convey, and they're being forced to convey an opinion in a very short amount of time, when really this is a very nuanced conversation. And there's lots of people out there that are discussing this at length. If folks are out on a walk and want to listen to a podcast, I listen to microbe.tv/immune has some great scientists who just love to chat about their work. And I've just been learning about immunity through them pre-COVID and during COVID. So I think something people could do if they just don't have time to read, or they don't really know where to look, or they're not interested in academic research articles, just start tuning into some of these amazing scientists who love to talk about their work on a podcast.
That's cool. That's good.
End up having more confidence in, gosh, what components of the immune system have which jobs, and what do other pathogens do? Like, I was listening to a really interesting one on measles, and that one is super infectious. So I remember learning long ago that hepatitis A was also a pretty sneaky little virus, and it could sit out. I remember learning this. I would have to fact check it again, but it could sit outside and still be infectious if you were to touch it and not wash your hands. So there's the whole virus world is fascinating.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it, right? I mean, I never would have looked at it that way, but it's it's very interesting. All right, the real important stuff here. We want to talk about the farm life. Did you grow up on a farm?
I did. My family moved to New Jersey when I was about 6, and we had horses and chickens and ducks and geese and baby raccoons and probably things I'm forgetting. Dog.
Cool. It's funny. We'll talk about the farm life, but you talk about raccoons. I've got a pet squirrel, I think, now. I sit out on my back deck, and I've been doing a lot of it because it's nice. It has been nice outside. And there's a whole pack of squirrels. There's like 10 of them. So I bought a big thing of peanuts, and I throw in peanuts and everything. And there's this one squirrel, they look alike. A lot of ways that I can tell the difference. But this one squirrel acts totally different. Like, he'll jump up in my lap, he'll eat out of my hand.
Really?
Yeah. So pretty. And he'll sit out, like, sometimes in the morning. I'll come to the back door. It's a glass door, and he's sitting on the back chair there, looking at me like, he's saying, like, "Where's the peanuts?" Like, he's yelling at me with his eyes, like, "Get the peanuts out here." So he's a little demanding little bugger, but he's turning my.
You're not afraid he's going to bite you, or like?
Somebody else said that he's been great. I put him in my hand, the peanuts in my hand one time, and I guess they can't see that well or something, because he started to think my finger was a peanut. But once he realized it wasn't a peanut, he bit really softly and it stopped. Yeah, it's like he was.
That's interesting. It's that trust, right? And we're coming back to trust.
Yeah, it's very true.
And,
Yeah, very true. So, how old were you when you left the farm?
Let's see. We moved, I think, when I was, I remember this. I moved halfway through high school. You will laugh at my efforts to fit in high school. I moved when I was a junior, and I thought it would be a good idea when they were doing, so Farm Girl moved to Princeton, New Jersey. And so it must have been me, thought it was a good idea to do a little article in the school newspaper. And I dressed up with a tie and a sweater, and I climbed a tree. And that's where that was the picture to introduce me to everybody,
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah. If you've listened to me at all, you know how much I believe that the farm life really made me who I am, allowed me to do the things that I've done in my life. But it is definitely one of those things. When I was a kid, I didn't appreciate it at all, because you're just so used to growing up in that world where you're, in my case, particularly my father and grandfather, just getting up every day and milking the cows and doing things the right way, and very meticulous, character, telling the truth and everything. And it's there was sometimes, like, it would drive me nuts, right? I just want to get in the tractor and get going, but they would, nope, we got to oil, we got to grease everything, we got to check the oil, make sure the fuel's filled up. And now I look back and I'm the same way. I'm with my cars last forever because I'm constantly taking care of them all the time. So
that's really interesting that you mentioned that, because in Japan, I really noticed that people were the same about, being meticulous as well. Like, there's a method for things. You just do it right. There's a way you do things. And trying to bring more of that into my life because I tend to just move fast and, want to get going on things like you, but
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that discipline, it just like I found for me, there's less waste, right? There's less going back and doing it over again in so many different ways, and again, I learned this from a Navy SEAL commander, that William McCraven, with the speech talking about making your bed. And it starts that way where the first thing I do in the morning is I make the bed perfect, right? I get up before 3:30. I make the bed perfect. Yeah. And when I go for a walk in the morning, it's a march. I try to get the most out of each stride. When I'm at the gym, I try to get the most out of each rep and all that stuff. And I find I'm able to accomplish so much more. I feel better about myself. And even in my relationships with just people in general, like I make sure when I engage with somebody, when I'm talking to them, and again, I learned this from seeing Navy SEALs, so like this too, or not just Navy SEALs, but other members of the military as well. But they're such confident people that when they engage with somebody in a conversation, if they ask them, "How are you?" they really stop and listen to how they're doing. Like they're engaged in that conversation. They're giving the best version of themselves to that person in that time. So to me, it just makes makes your life so much better in so many different ways. So I believe that. So.
I agree. So what do you do on those days when you don't quite feel like you have it? Do you have like a plan B?
No. Those are the best days, because you train yourself to say, okay, I have the option here. Like now I go to the gym by myself in the morning because my buddy has a gym and he's trying to rebuild it. But so I'm by myself in the gym. So if I say I'm going to do 5 sets of 12 on, let's say, the bench press or whatever, and those bad days where you're at like that 8th or 9th rep and you don't want to do it, it's like now, like you can train yourself to say, like this kicks in. Don't worry about, if I'm at 8, I'm not worried about 12. I'm just worried about 9. And once I'm done 9, I worry about 10. So it's that doing that next task in front of you that really matters. And I've learned this over and over, that you can really train your mind to be like that. A lot of people say, I can't, like people say, you can't be like you, Tom, or you can't be like somebody else. Well, I don't expect anybody else to be like me. I just say, get to be a better version of yourself every day. And that's how you do it, with, completing that next task in front of you. And especially in those days when you don't feel good or don't feel like doing it. Then once you're done that exercise, right, that workout, man, you're fired up because you say to yourself, yeah, I fought through that and I didn't really have to fight through it. So
that's true. I was riding a horse one time when I was getting back into riding. She was an Irish sport horse, and she was, I think, like around 6. She was fairly young, and I was not young, and I had 2 boys. And I remember being so incredibly nervous. And this is just about mindset. I noticed how I was feeling, like I was really keyed up and I was sweating and my pulse was racing. And so I tried to reframe, okay, can we call that a different word? Can we not call that being nervous? Can we call that excited?
Yes.
And if I call it excited, how do I then feel about going to ride this crazy horse? And it was better because a horse, as you know, animals figure out pretty quickly where you are. Emotionally, and this one wasn't going to be kind. If she knew I was nervous, she wasn't going to take care of me. As a matter of fact, I was riding one time in the woods. I love to reward her with a trail ride after we were just riding in the ring, and I just thought that was a nice thing of me to do. And maybe she would realize if I'm nice to her in the ring, this rider will take me up to the woods. Yeah. So maybe I'll be nice to her, and then we'll go to the woods. Well, it turns out she's so keyed up. This mare was so keyed up that she wasn't relaxed in the woods. I'm not really sure she actually really enjoyed it, but I did. And so I'm not sure we were a match made in heaven, but one time there was like a pond, and a fly landed on the pond, literally 6 feet away from us, like over ferns and bushes and things. But she spied out of her great peripheral vision. She saw that fly land in the pond and the rings coming out, and she jumped. I'm like, really? It was a fly. It was a fly.
Did you stay on her?
I stayed on her that time, but it's funny you ask about that, because just before we moved to Japan, I was taking one of my last rides, and so there was a tree down in the trail, and she was going up this trail, and I try to make myself do something I'm a little bit afraid of every time. I keep trying to push the boundary a little bit, because otherwise it's a slippery slope. Like if you say, no, I'm not going to do it today, then you just keep regressing and regressing. And pretty soon you're in this small world. So I was like, no, we're going to go up this trail and it'll be fine. And I have to tell this horse it'll be fine. Well, sure enough, there's a tree down, but there was enough room for us to get around. But she bumped into part of the tree and she made the whole tree move. So she thought the whole tree was alive, like a massive, monster in the woods. And she literally jumped sideways and up. So there was the trail itself was like a huge gully, a ditch. And so it was 3 feet up on one side. She levitated herself up and into the woods. And we were stuck, literally stuck, because the Washington State woods are really like jammed with ferns and trees and things. So she's up there, and I'm thinking, well, I can't back her back down into the ditch. We can't go forward. So I'm going to do an emergency dismount. I get off her. While I'm getting off her, she decides to bolt and leave me. So there I am in the woods with no horse, and she's gone. She's a white horse, and I couldn't see her. She was that fast. I literally could not see her. So I had, you know how embarrassing it is to run home in your horse riding gear without your horse. Run quick! I hope no one sees me.
I think I've told the story before. The family on my mother's side, they had a farm with horses on it, and they had this little pony. And I don't know why it was set up this way, but they had this one field that had an electric fence. Are you familiar with electric fence?
Oh yes.
So, and they had it set up for some reason that it was just high enough so that the pony could get underneath the electric fence. I don't know if that was the reason or not, but I must have been like 6 or 7 years old. And I thought I was a real cowboy, going up to the farm, watching Western movies and all that stuff. So I'm up on the pony, and it didn't have a saddle or anything, just had a reins. And I was going to whip the pony. I was going to get him going. I really wasn't much of a rider at that point. And I must have whipped the pony, like him in the eye or something with the whip or the reins. And it took off running. Now I'm sitting on top of the pony, and the pony goes underneath the fence with me on top of it. So I'm going flying backwards.
That was the pony's grandmaster plan. Ponies are that way. They are really smart and mischievous. My pony tried to rub me off on trees, would pick the branch that would take me out as well. That's
funny. Well, he certainly got me. He knew what he was doing. He got me good. I was crying like, what the horse do to me? I whipped the horse in the eye. Of course he's going to run away. So. It's good. Well, listen, I love talking to you. We should do that again. We'll get rid of Bob. He's pain. He talks too much all the time. So we'll get rid of him. I'm teasing everybody. I'm teasing. So with your business then, you're always taking on new clients?
I am.
Okay. Yes. And how would people get a hold of you then?
Probably direct via email is easiest. I don't know if you put that in your little notes.
I can post it if you're comfortable with me posting it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
You've been fantastic. Sir, I really admire you. I'm glad we talked. All the things you got going on in your life on a personal side, business side. Very good. Good job. You're a self-taught person too. You seem like if you don't know something, you're very willing to go find out the answer.
Yeah, I guess that's why I enjoy my work so much, because I'm not an expert in anything, but it gives me a chance to read and research and get myself into the client's place and try to articulate the research as best I can and make it fill a hole that's not been filled yet. So
that's interesting. I tell you, that's been a good thing for me during the pandemic, that I've really had an opportunity like that with cooking and food and everything. I've gotten into the intermittent fasting a lot more. Just like I probably had the time before, but because I'm kind of locked away, I made a point of like freezing foods that I didn't know I could freeze, and smoothies.
I have a question for you on that. The intermittent fasting, I'm really bad about like not eating in the morning and drinking only coffee, and then I work, and then I'll go for a run, and then I'll come back and I'm ravenous, and then I eat probably too late. I eat around like 4, 5, 6. Not a good idea.
No, well, the studies, and again, I'm stubborn on this stuff. Trainers I knew talked to me about intermittent fasting for years, and I finally sat down and studied it. And so basically, after, let's say you stop eating at 8 o'clock at night. At 8 o'clock in the morning, 12 hours later, 12 months, yeah. That's a good fast right there. 12 hours later, your body has burned off all the calories inside. And as long as your body is burning calories, it's not concentrating on doing anything else. And it's got all these amazing powers to heal itself, like regenerating cells in your body, making more human growth hormone, burning fat in your body. So once that 12-hour period ends, now your body does all those great things. It basically heals itself. It's taking all the fat it doesn't need out of it. So that's when it's really doing a lot of great stuff for you. So the fact that you don't eat, like to me, it's a 16-hour fast. So I eat at 12 o'clock. So I have 4 hours there where my body is really cleaning itself out. And then I start putting real healthy food back in again. So the longer you can go on a fast, the more time you have for your body to heal itself. So by doing that, you're doing some great stuff for your body, really.
What do you say to the people who suggest that you really need to get your metabolism going in the morning by eating something?
Yeah, I used to believe in that, and that's all been debunked now. I was definitely that way. Yeah. In fact, it works the opposite way. Like you really mentally you feel sharper because again, now your body is healing all the dead brain cells in your body, and I've got plenty of those to fix up. And I've talked to now. There are some people it doesn't work. There's some people that just can't seem to handle it. Like too long of a fast, like they'll feel tired or faint or whatever. I think part of the key is that if you're, and this kind of goes against what people think too, that if you're going to stop eating at 8, you have to eat right up till 8 o'clock. And then try to get your workout in as early as you can in the morning. So I get my workout, I start working out at like 4 o'clock in the morning. So I get all my workout in during that 12-hour period where your body still is burning off all the calories and everything. If you can do that, that's the ideal way to do it. But for me, it's been fantastic. And it's really, once you learn your body, it's kind of a way to control your own body fat too. Like you can really say to yourself, okay, I'm going to really be strict with it. I'm going to really get my 16 hours or 17 hours. And sometimes if you feel like, man, I really feel lean, I need to get some more calories in me and not have maybe quite as long of a fast. So it's really, once you learn your body, you can really control it better. So.
Or if you're going to be speaking to someone who thinks really fast, like you or Bob, you want to eat properly beforehand.
That is true. We're fun. We get on, Bob and I get on together there. We could go on forever talking. We go on forever. Well, listen, so if, we're going to post Ali's email. This has been fantastic. Again, what I love about what you do is that if you don't know it, you're going to find out. I think that's a great lesson for everybody else out there that, and I believe in this stuff. I think physically, mentally, emotionally, there's so many things that we don't allow ourselves to do that we can be so much better, right? Like I think we just use a small portion of our mental capacity, our physical capacity. There's so much more there if we push ourselves a bit farther. So you definitely do that.
Let me leave your listeners with one thought that I learned from my kendo sensei in Japan, back to the trust. It's a Japanese word, Shinkan Furan, and it basically means trust in your sweat. And I took that to heart when I was doing things that were difficult for me, like trying to pass a grading exam, a belt exam, black belt exam.
Right.
And, so there's so many things in life I think that we can apply that to. There's things you've done, and just trust yourself, trust in your sweat, trust in the things that you've done many, many times.
I love that. That's fantastic, right? Yeah, you do the work, you give yourself a license to be confident, right? When you do the work. That's right. Fantastic. Well, great to meet you. We're going to have you on again. Thanks, Ali.
Thank you.